In a post-apocalyptic Australia, a tribe called Vuvalini of the Many Mothers lives in a secluded oasis. One day, young Furiosa and her friend Valkyrie are out harvesting peaches when they spot a gang of marauders butchering a horse in the oasis. To protect the location of their home from outsiders, Furiosa tells Valkyrie to hide and then tries to sabotage the gang's motorcycles. However, she gets caught and kidnapped by the gang. As Furiosa whistles for help, Furiosa's mother, Mary, and Mary's friend pursue the gang, managing to kill some of the members, but they're unable to rescue Furiosa. The surviving gang member takes Furiosa to the camp of the ruthless and bloodthirsty Dementis. Before the gang member can reveal the location of the oasis, Furiosa manages to slit his throat. Dementis, who notes that he lost his own children during the apocalypse, has Furiosa taken to a tent and promises to take her home the next day. During a sandstorm, Mary sneaks into the camp and manages to kill Furiosa's guards, fleeing with her daughter. However, Dementis tracks them down with his bloodhounds. Eventually, Dementis and his gang capture Mary and Furiosa. In a brutal and violent scene, Dementis tortures Mary in front of Furiosa, trying to extract the location of the oasis. Despite the suffering, Mary refuses to reveal the location, and she ultimately dies. Furiosa is left traumatized and goes silent, refusing to talk for years. The only thing she has to remind her of home is a seed from the peach tree that she was harvesting. Furiosa is held captive by Dementis, who eerily refers to her as his daughter. She's forced to witness the expansion and escalating brutality of his gang. In one harrowing moment, Dementis and his cohorts corner a smaller group, coercing them to join his ranks. As part of the twisted initiation ritual, the smaller group's leader is chained to 5 motorcycles. The group's members are then compelled to fight for a spot on the motorcycle, with the ominous threat of death hanging over them. Once the 5 victors secure their seats, they speed off, brutally tearing their former leader apart. Dementis and his gang stumble upon a brain-damaged warboy, lost and wandering in the scorching desert. The warboy, clearly a survivor of a brutal battle with an unknown foe, reveals to Dementis the location of his home, the Citadel, a supposed oasis of abundance, with ample water and food. As Dementis rummages through the warboy's belongings, he discovers a flare gun, which he recklessly fires, inadvertently dyeing his beard a vibrant red. Dementis is oddly delighted by this newfound crimson hue. Dementis and his massive gang storm the Citadel, a fortress carved into rock formations that harvests clean water from beneath the surface, storing it in a cistern atop the rocks. Dementis attempts to turn the citizens against their leader, Immortan Joe. However, Joe, aided by the People Eater and his sons Rictus and Scrotus, ridicules Dementis. He orders his warboys to bombard Dementis' gang with explosives from above and uses cranes to confiscate many of their vehicles. Dementis retreats with his remaining forces, but begins surveilling the Citadel. Dementis discovers that the Citadel trades resources with neighboring Gastown, exchanging food and water for gasoline, and with the Bullet Farm, trading for ammunition. Seizing an opportunity, Dementis and his forces hijack one of the Citadel's war rigs en route to Gastown. They use the captured vehicle to infiltrate Gastown, where Dementis' soldiers launch a surprise attack, overpower Gastown's forces, and breach the gates. With Gastown under his control, Dementis asserts his dominance. As the new ruler of Gastown, Dementis initiates negotiations with Immortan Joe, leveraging a remote detonator to threaten Gastown's destruction if Joe attempts to kill him. Joe consents to increase the resource allocation to Gastown in exchange for Furiosa, a rare healthy woman he hopes to use as a breeder, and the organic mechanic, a medically knowledgeable individual. Dementis initially refuses, claiming Joe won't separate him from his daughter. However, Furiosa unexpectedly speaks up after years of silence, denying her relation to Dementis and expressing her desire to join the Citadel. Dementis then accepts the deal. Furiosa is brought to join the enslaved wives and breeders held captive by Immortan Joe, and they all stare at her with a look of surprise. Furiosa seizes an opportunity to escape the confines of Joe's chambers, where his enslaved wives and breeders are held captive. As the years pass, Furiosa blossoms into a resourceful and esteemed young adult, earning admiration from her peers for her outstanding mechanical prowess. Adopting a male disguise, she infiltrates Scrotus' crew, working tirelessly alongside them to design cutting-edge vehicles and deadly war rigs. Though she maintains the illusion of being mute, Furiosa secretly harbors a plan to escape, driven by a profound longing to return to her homeland. Meanwhile, Praetorian Jack, Joe's most accomplished driver with a flawless record of transporting goods via war rig, embarks on a perilous journey to Gastown and Bullet Farm. Seizing the opportunity, Furiosa covertly attaches herself to the war rig's undercarriage. However, their trek is soon disrupted by a rogue gang. splintered from Dementis' faction and exiled from Gastown. A ferocious battle ensues, with the gang deploying gliders and flying vehicles. Jack and Furiosa emerge as the sole survivors of the carnage. Furiosa attempts to commandeer the war rig, but Jack foils her plan. The two engage in a conversation, and Jack offers to mentor Furiosa, imparting his expertise in vehicles and combat. This knowledge would enable her to execute a successful escape when the time is right. Furiosa accepts Jack's proposal, and a tentative alliance is formed. As time passes, Furiosa rises through the ranks to become a Praetorian and Jack's trusted second-in-command. Their relationship blossoms into romance. One evening, amidst the secluded crags atop the citadel, Jack confides in Furiosa that he believes she's ready to make her escape. He shares his personal motivations, revealing that his parents instilled in him the importance of fighting for a cause, and he finally feels he's doing so by aiding Furiosa. With vulnerability, Jack asks if she'll allow him to join her in her quest for freedom, and Furiosa agrees, welcoming him by her side. On their subsequent supply run to the bullet farm, the bullet farmer shares crucial information with Jack and Furiosa, revealing that Gastown is teetering on the brink of collapse. He proposes that Joe and he launch a joint assault on Dementis, taking advantage of the chaos. Upon their arrival in Gastown, they're met with a scene of utter disarray. Despite receiving food shipments, the community is plagued by starvation, a testament to Dementis' inept leadership. As they unload the supplies, Dementis emerges, requesting a meeting with Joe and the bullet farmer to discuss restoring order. Furiosa, fueled by anger and the painful memory of how he brutally killed her mother, wants to shoot him on the spot, but Jack interrupts. However, his true intentions are soon revealed as he incites the crowd to riot, forcing Furiosa and Jack to narrowly escape with their lives. After reporting the chaos in Gastown to Joe, he convenes an emergency council with the bullet farmer at the Citadel. Joe, his sons, and advisors gather to discuss their next move, ultimately deciding to launch an assault on Dementis. To prepare for the battle, the Praetorians, including Furiosa and Jack, are sent to the bullet farm to gather as much ammunition as they can carry. Unbeknownst to Joe, Furiosa and Jack see this mission as their chance to escape and secretly make plans to break free during the ammunition gathering operation. At the bullet farm, the Citadel forces, including Furiosa and Jack, are caught off guard by a surprise ambush led by Dementis and his soldiers. Dementis had anticipated Joe and the bullet farmer's plan to seize the ammunition and launched a preemptive attack, quickly overpowering the farm's defenses. The war boys are swiftly eliminated, and Jack is trapped inside the farm. He urges Furiosa, who had managed to evade the trap, to flee and save herself, intending to launch a solo assault on Dementis. However, Furiosa refuses to abandon Jack and boldly enters the bullet farm, determined to rescue him. Against all odds, the pair executes a daring escape, fighting their way out of the farm and managing to evade their captors. Infuriated by their escape, Dementis and his forces relentlessly pursue Furiosa and Jack. Eventually, they are captured by Dementis, who fails to recognize the now-grown Furiosa. As punishment for their defiance, Dementis chains Furiosa and brutally executes Jack by dragging him to death behind a motorcycle, followed by his bloodhounds devouring the body. During the gruesome spectacle, Furiosa seizes the opportunity to saw off her handcuffed arm, sabotage Dementis vehicles, and make a daring escape. She eventually returns to the Citadel, implied to have received assistance from Mad Max Rokotansky, who is seen observing her from a distance. Furiosa recounts the events to Immortan Joe and the bullet farmer, warning him that Dementis had planned a fake attack on Gastown. She reveals that the main target of the attack is actually the Citadel. Furiosa vows to personally avenge herself by killing Dementis. Joe's sons and advisors argue about the news brought by Furiosa, and Joe is confused about whether to trust her or not. Meanwhile, on their way to attack the Citadel, Dementis and his crew drive down the hidden path they created, frequently checking to see if Joe has taken the bait by burning down Gastown. Unbeknownst to Dementis, Joe has planned his own bait, heeding Furiosa's advice. He sends a small crew to Gastown while using cranes to dig up the road, making it appear as though a massive convoy is approaching. War erupts, with Scrotus at the helm. As the conflict rages on, Furiosa crafts a mechanical arm to replace her lost limb. With her new prosthetic, she drives to the front lines, only to discover that Scrotus has emerged victorious. Although Dementis' forces have been vanquished, Dementis himself has managed to escape into the desert. Furiosa relentlessly pursues Dementis into the desert, systematically eliminating his remaining allies as she closes in. Eventually, Dementis is the last one standing, his once formidable gang decimated. One morning, he awakens to find his canteen slashed, his motorcycle destroyed, and his firearms emptied of ammunition. Furiosa then confronts him, and after a brief, intense struggle, Dementis surrenders to her. As Furiosa tortures Dementis, he ultimately recognizes her, but instead of fear, he's ecstatic to be reunited with his perceived daughter. He declares that Furiosa will be his rightful successor, driven by the same bloodlust and vengeance that fuels him. However, Furiosa vehemently rejects his claims, vowing to prove that she is nothing like the ruthless leader. The narrator presents multiple possible endings, including Furiosa simply killing Dementis with a bullet or subjecting him to the same torture he inflicted on Mary and Jack. However, the narrator then reveals Furiosa's own account of events. According to Furiosa, she brought Dementis back to the Citadel, where she planted a peach tree seed inside him. The tree allegedly grew, bursting out of his stomach and bearing new fruit from his twisted body. The film concludes with Furiosa smuggling Immortan Joe's enslaved wives into her war rig, setting the stage for her liberation mission, as depicted in Mad Max: Fury Road.